In Italy, there's a family whose name you rarely hear, but everything they touch turns into power. Sports, automotive, media, banking, everything leads back to the same surname. Ferrari, Jeep, Maserati, Juventus, even the Economist. Behind all of this stands a single family. This family isn't just rich. It's not just big. This family is an invisible center that determines Italy's destiny. Whether the Italian economy is growing or faltering, you see the same surname behind the scenes, Agnelli. And the most striking thing is this. They never openly claimed this power. They didn't win elections. They didn't become kings. They simply knew how to stand on the right side in every era. In Italy, real power doesn't shout. It doesn't flaunt. It seems to change hands, but in reality, it always remains in the same hands. It moves from palaces to corporate headquarters, from titles to stock holdings. The Benettons control the roads. The Pirellis control industry. The Berlusconis control the media. But above them all is one family, quiet, patient, and calculating. The Agnellis. For them, power isn't a momentary triumph. It's a position passed down through generations. At the end of the 19th century, Italy was a new country. It existed on maps but lacked infrastructure. There were no roads. Industry was weak. The future was uncertain. It was in this environment that a man emerged, Giovanni Agnelli. While everyone was talking about the past, he was imagining something that didn't yet exist, a country that moved by automobiles. When he founded Fiat in 1899, there was neither a market nor demand, but Giovanni knew this. Demand is not waited for, it is built. Fiat was more than just a company. It became the engine of Italy's industrialization. Success came quickly, but in 1908, a major crisis erupted. Financial scandals, trials, loss of reputation. Giovanni was acquitted, but he learned something. It's not enough to just do good work. You have to be strong. This lesson shaped the entire future of the family. When World War I broke out, Fiat was ready. The factories switched to military production overnight. Trucks, tanks, aircraft engines. While Italy was fighting the war, Fiat was growing. But this growth drew criticism. Accusations of profiteering arose. Giovanni acted differently this time. He approached politics and formed an alliance with one of the most dangerous men of the time, Benito Mussolini. This alliance made Fiat untouchable. Fiat supported fascism as it rose. Fiat withdrew as fascism fell. During World War II, they produced for Germany. When the war was lost, they remained close to the Allies. The Agnellis knew one thing very well. Ideologies are temporary. Companies must endure. There was a brief reckoning in 1945, but Fiat was too important for the country. The family survived once again. After the war, Gianni Agnelli entered the scene. He wasn't just an industrialist, he was a strategist. He did business with the Soviets during the Cold War. He didn't sever ties with the West. He followed opportunities, not ideologies. Fiat grew. Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, Lancia, Maserati. The heart of the Italian automotive industry was concentrated in one hand. At one point, 1 in 5 industrial workers in Italy was connected to the Fiat chain. This was no longer just economic power. It was social power. But Gianni Agnelli eventually realized something crucial. The factories were powerful, yes. Thousands of workers, giant production lines, industry that kept the country's economy afloat. All of that was important, but it wasn't enough because factories produced goods, but perception produced reality, and reality was shaped by what people believed. Politicians listened to the people, but the people often formed their own opinions from what they read. Which news story is highlighted? Which crisis is exaggerated? Which success is quietly downplayed? All of this pointed to the new center of power. The Agnellis saw this early. That's why they invested not just in production, but in narrative. First came the newspapers, then the radios, and finally a voice that transcended borders, the Economist. It was no longer just about making money. It was about determining how the economy was explained, which ideas were presented as reasonable and which as dangerous. Markets change direction with a headline. Investors act with an analysis. Politicians take positions with a commentary. The Agnellis were no longer just in the economy, the language of the economy. But true lasting power is built not on numbers, but on emotions. And the disabled were aware of this. That's why their next move came from a place that touched people's hearts. Juventus. In Italy, football is not a game. It's a form of belonging. It's an identity. As Juventus won, it wasn't just matches that were won. It built a bond in neighborhoods, at dinner tables, passed down from generation to generation. For the Agnellis, this was worth its weight in gold, because loyalty cannot be bought, but it can be built. And Juventus did just that for them. Ferrari, however, was on a completely different level. Ferrari wasn't about speed. Ferrari wasn't about accessibility. Ferrari was a dream. It was a status symbol. It was a promise of perfection. When Fiat controlled Ferrari, the Agnellis began to control not just a brand, but also desire. On one hand, the working-class car, Fiat; on the other, the elite's dream, Ferrari. This balance connected them to every stratum of society. Today, John Elkann is on stage. He's not as flamboyant as his grandfather, nor constantly in the public eye. But perhaps this is his most powerful position yet, because power no longer shouts, it works quietly. Today, power is no longer in factory chimneys, not on assembly lines. Power is now in data, in the media, in the meeting rooms where the rules are being written in Europe, and the Agnellis are right there. While companies are merging, while regulations are being drafted, while the industries of the future are taking shape, they are around the table. This story inevitably boils down to one question. Are we truly ruled by the ballot boxes or by dynasties that remain far beyond the ballot boxes and have never truly gone? If you've read this far, the story has captivated you. And that is the true mastery of the Agnelli family, ruling without being seen.